Hey everyone, I'm Renee. I am the owner and artist behind Chicly Reclaimed Decor, and welcome back to my channel. So today's video, I'll be sharing an oldie but a goodie. This is a salvaged vanity mirror that I redesigned with a variety of molds and hand painting techniques to create an ornate, old world inspired design. So if this piece of upcycled art looks like something you'd be interested in seeing the process behind, stick around, because that's what I will be going over today. But before we begin, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you can be notified when I upload new videos. Now this mirror in particular came from a vanity that I turned into 2 nightstands, and I shared with you their redesign here on my channel as well. But as you can see, this mirror has some beautiful antiquing to it, and in keeping with that, I wanted to create a piece that was aged and old world inspired. This was one of those old Art Deco styled vanities, and with the help of my husband, we just ended up cutting off these 2 decorative wood panels on the side. And originally, I had the thought of putting them here on the top of the mirror, but as time went on, I thought, why do that when I can add them to the bottom and beautify and really make this the focal point and accent on this design. So the first step in this process was I needed to measure, so that way I can find the middle here, so that way I can make sure that everything is centered. And in addition to gluing these in place, I'm also going to be using these mending braces. Now these are going to provide not only a mechanical connection, but it's also going to provide some structural support, especially since I'm going to be adding a lot of weight later on when I add the moldings and appliques. And this is what it looked like from the front after I had attached the mending braces to the back. And I just went ahead and used a bonding and blocking primer to prepare this piece to be painted. And as I am going to be adding a bunch of texture after this step, I'm really not concerned here at all about brush strokes. Once my piece was prepped, I was ready to start designing. First things first, I'm going to start by adding some trimming here along the edges to soften and round them off. For this project, I'm going to be using air dry paper clay to cast this mold right here. And so before I begin, I need to add some cornstarch into my mold so that way I can easily remove my clay once I am done. And I'm using air dry paper clay in particular because it is quite a bit lighter than regular air dry clay. Okay, so once my paper clay had time to dry, about 24 hours or so, I came back through to add the next step. I'm going to be adding a base layer of texture here using one of my favorite products. This is an acrylic plaster, and I'm also going to be creating a raised stencil design with it as well. So as far as designing this piece, I've kind of thought ahead, and I know that I'm going to have quite a few molds in the middle and then along the edges. But right here, I am going to have some open area. So this is where I'm going to be adding this beautiful raised stencil design. Once I have my raised stencil designs where I like them, I'm going to go about adding on this embossing medium to create some really great texture. Okay, so next up, I'm going to be sharing with you how you can cast molds using a hot glue gun and some glue sticks. Now, this is a great technique just in case you're like me and you live in a more rural area. I don't have a craft store near me, and also if I have to buy a casting resin, I have to have it delivered. So this is great for me because I do have an Ace nearby and they do sell glue sticks. So first things first, you need to plug your glue gun in so that it has time to warm up. And once it is done so, remember to put your glue stick in place before starting. Now, I like to start from one side of the mold and work my way to the other when I'm doing this. There are some conveniences to using glue sticks to make your mold. For instance, you can warm them up to make them flexible again, just in case you need to contour them to your surface. Another nice thing is that you don't have to measure out anything like you would with a casting resin. And you can also paint these molds right away, so you don't have to wait for them to dry like you would with a air dry clay or paper clay. This technique has served me well over the years, and I hope it is just one more tool in your DIY arsenal. So as you can see from this sequence of photos, the designing process starts from the very beginning. And I'm probably going to rearrange these molds a bazillion times until I get a base concept that I'm happy with. And as you can see from all these pictures, I keep track of them, and that makes it so much easier for me to pick out the design that I like the most. And then I just have that on my computer, and then I just piece it together like it's a puzzle. Now from here on out in the painting process, you are going to be seeing me add on quite a few layers of different colored paints, as well as using a paint resist using Saltwash texture powder to create a chippy and distressed aged paint finish. Now to achieve a chippy paint look, I'm going to be using Saltwash as a paint resist. Now for this part, you're simply going to sprinkle the Saltwash texture powder over top of your design. Once I have my texture powder sprinkled where I would like, I am just going to take a fine misting bottle full of water and I'm going to wet down this powder. And make sure that you wait until this product has had time to dry thoroughly before moving on to the next step. And here I'm going to be adding a very distressed layer of a creamy off-white over top of what I already have down. Keeping in mind that I'm going for a very distressed paint look here, and as you can see, I'm switching up the application. Some areas I'm pouncing or dabbing, while other areas I am dry brushing. So remember here to use your own artistic discretion when you are layering on these paints. Next up in the layering process, I'm going to be applying a light green style color. So while you're watching this part of the process, let's talk a little bit about my inspiration behind this design. So I really wanted this piece to look like at one time it was beautifully hand painted with gold accents. And in my imagination, I see it placed in a secret garden, maybe an old world style English courtyard. But time and the elements have aged the paint finish to create this now aged by time and chippy design. You can add on as many layers during that stage as you want, but I stopped right after the green and I came through and I scraped off all that Saltwash texture powder that we had used as a paint resist earlier on. And when I'm removing the Saltwash powder from these ornate moldings, I find using a stiff bristled toothbrush works well. Next up, I'm going to continue with the paint layering process. I'm going to be adding an aged, rusted look to this design with this custom color here. When you are creating an aged paint finish, I find it easiest to have visual reference. As you can see in the right-hand corner, this was mine for this project. So definitely helps you to have a more authentic look to things when you have something that is actually aged to look at during this step. And the last paint that I'm going to layer on here is a walnut type brown that is heavy on the red tones. And instead of using a glaze or a wax to age this design and add some of that grunge and patina, I'm just going to be doing hand painting techniques with this brown color here. And remember the gold accents that I mentioned earlier? Well, I'm going to be adding them now by dry brushing on this rich gold color here and there. Remember, we're going for that aged look to this gold as well. And here is our up-close look at our piece of upcycled art that we created using a salvaged vanity mirror, a variety of molds, including some cast from just plain old glue sticks. And then I shared with you the process of how I layered paints, as well as Saltwash texture powder as a paint resist to create this chippy and aged paint look. Again, my name is Renee. I am the owner and artist behind Chicly Reclaimed Decor, and thank you so much for watching. If you liked today's tutorial and you're interested in more DIY content, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And today, I hope that I've inspired you to pick up a paintbrush and do a little creating of your very own. Some cast from just plain old glue sticks. Glue sticks is hard to say with Invisalign in, guys.